Hey guys, what's up? Louis here. How you guys doing? So you can see today we're here at the Haunted Mansion at Walt Disney World. I'm going to show you how I photograph this. Now once you're here, take advantage that there's actually photo pass here on the left and take some cool shots, including a magic shot that look like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the equipment. So as you guys know, I got the Canon R, and I have here my 35mm f1.8. Now, obviously, since it's a dark ride, we are going to be shooting at the widest f-stop possible, which is the lowest number possible. And for starters, we're going to make sure, obviously, our aperture is the widest possible, which is the 1.8. But when it comes to shutter speed, we're going to bring this down and way down. It all depends upon your comfort level. But I will advise you that the guy with the box is moving up and down, so you cannot go too slow. So we're going to probably let's start at 1/100 or maybe 1/80th and see what we get. Maybe 1/100, and anything we can always dial it down. Now when it comes to focus, as you can see, I have manual focus, and the reason for that is that since it's so dark, and many times sometimes the camera and the lens, depending on what you have, will focus pretty well. But I like to sometimes just use manual focus on these cases, and when in the ride, I'll adjust to something and then turn it off. Okay, and then following that, we're going to go with the spot metering here, which is what we want to focus on, which is the center of the frame. Now, in the case of the Canon cameras, remember that metering is only done on the center of the frame, so make sure you adjust to having him into the center frame, even though you crop afterwards. And then that's it. And then obviously ISO, I'm going to leave it as auto, so that's going to be going pretty high, usually 12,800, 25,000 sometimes, depending on the camera. And that's it. Let's go ahead and give this a try. Okay, so now that we got our shot, let's head home into the computer and edit some photos. Let's go. Now, a couple of things regarding the Hatbox Ghost here in Walt Disney World. For starters, he's not still. So, for example, you'll see in this video where you can see that little shift that he's doing. So I found that trying to bring down the shutter speed less than 160, 140, it's going to be very difficult to try to be able to get it where he's not moving. Now, I did notice that he does stop before he moves up and down. He does stop for a second on the bottom, and the same thing on the top. So that's when you want to try to get these photos, which is what I did on this case. Okay, so now I'll be honest with you, I did remove a bunch of the photos that were all blurry and all weird, so that way we are only working with the ones that come out somewhat acceptable, but I left a couple of bad ones in there so you guys can see as well. So the first one here, 100 of a second, you can see actually it's not bad at all. It's very noisy, obviously at ISO 25,000, but at least it's in focus, so this is something that we could probably work with in the future. As we go getting closer, I started rolling down my shutter speed. Here again, 1/100 of a second, and then here we actually went down to 1/10 of a second, which was probably a little bit too much, but actually it came out pretty good. A lot of noise in there, honestly, to tell you. But again, this was one of the photos that I used on my Instagram page, because let's be honest, on Instagram you can post stuff and get away with it since the square is so small. And so some stuff like this where it may have so much noise where people say, well, that's all noisy. You can get away with Instagram on this, so that's just for you to know. Now, I'm going to quickly point here. You're probably noticing that you can see somewhat of the head inside the box, and this was probably my fault because I obviously adjusted the shadows up here, as you can see here, and that brought that up. And of course, you get the people on the post saying, well, the thing is broken, you know, I can see it. Yeah, you can see it because I obviously adjusted it so you can see it, because in the ride you don't really notice much of the background either. It's pretty dark, so bringing up all that stuff up will you know, stuff like this will happen. Yes, I could go in and you know, bring down the shadows or darken it, which I did in another photo, but they already been posted, so I left it as it is. Here's another one that I actually brought down to 0.4 seconds, which was crazy just to think about it. But as you can see, at this point you already start getting blur because, as I mentioned before, the guy is moving up and down, and you got to actually get it when he sort of like stops, and then he moves up again and he stops. But yeah, you can see here, terrible shot, out of focus, because obviously it's blurring, it's moving, so that's way a speed that's not really good. Here's another one, which as you can see, I brought down to 1/10 of a second. This sort of like looks like it's the good number to shoot at. Not much motion there, which is pretty cool. So again, I got him when he was frozen. And this one, you can see where it says enhanced because I already applied the denoise on Lightroom, which is an awesome tool to somewhat clean this up a little bit. Even though the ISO is 8000, you can still see here a lot of noise on the photo. So you know, it is what it is. Now, sometimes stuff like this, when it becomes dark rides, you always want to try to gear the person's sight to where what you want them to look at. So stuff like this, where you see the outside, which is out of you know, a bit noisy, I'll go in and paintbrush here, and I'll sometimes bring the shadows around it and bring them down, or you can apply a vignette to it, no problem. So here, for example, I'm just going to darken this a little bit. Bring the shadows down, or you can bring the exposure down is another thing, and that way you'll see that the ghost is somewhat the stuff that's most brightest in the image, which is what's going to bring the attention to the eye. And there you go. Now, of course, you can do other stuff as well. You can even brighten the ghost itself. That's another thing if you want to do that. Let me just go ahead and show you some of the other photos. This one was 1/10 also. And there's a little red thing there. I don't know if that was my camera or if it was on the ride itself. But anyway, that's pretty easy fix to go into Photoshop and just remove it. Let's see what else we got here. Here you can see where he's doing that little bounce. If I'm going to switch here from one to another. So you got to get it when he's like right there on the top. And that's where he stops. And that's where you can get the shots. Let's see what other speeds here I got here on the photo. 110, which was another one right here. Let's see this one, which I think came out pretty good. And yeah, 1/10 again. I brought up the brightness around the shadows on the photo, which brings up all the noise, which is probably something I shouldn't be doing. But now you know what happens if you do. Here are a couple of other shots, and I think the 1/50th is probably the sweet spot here on this shot. So if you're the type of person who likes to lock in the speed, I would say 150 is probably the way to go. But again, I'm doing this on my camera, which is the Canon R, which is really good at high ISOs. So if your camera does not have, like, you know, good at high ISO, and you can more or less know what your camera can do and can't do. So if your camera at 6400 ISO doesn't look good, then maybe 150 is not going to be good for you. Probably try 110, 120. But again, you got to try to get it when you stop in, and it's, you know, pretty difficult since the dune buggy is also moving. Again, I did do 2 trips on this, so you know, a lot of attempts, a lot of keeping pressing there, shooting and praying, and then I go back and I remove the bad ones and I go in and work on the ones which I think are good. So for example, this one here, which looks great, I'm going to go ahead and apply here the same thing. I'm going to bring down the shadows, I'm going to bring down the exposure, and I'm going to just paint around it to get rid of all that noise that looks just terrible. And there we go. And then what I can do after that, I can actually then go into the ghost Hatbox itself and just denoise him only, and that way it doesn't give that plasticky feel to the image because I'm only doing it to him, and it looks a little better. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's look for the denoise here. Okay, bring that up, make this smaller, and I'm just going to paint right over him, and that way bring down the noise on what is him, and maybe a little bit of the scene. Again, you don't want to do everything because you want only him to stand out, so that's what I'm doing here. And as you can see here, this is what I applied the noise to, and here's the background, which is what I applied the exposure and the shadows. And I think it looks pretty good. Let's see. If I zoom in here, look, looks pretty good. Again, the guy looks pretty good there, and you can see his teeth is missing and everything. So, and here are a couple of more shots that I tried. Here's one with the head in the box. I didn't actually get any really good one with the head in the box. And here you can see where he's moving. So it's tricky, I'll be honest with you, but it's a fun thing to try to do, and obviously I'm sure it's on all our photographers list wish to do. So there you go. Those are the settings. That's how I edit it, and this is how it looks in Lightroom. So hopefully this helps anybody out trying to capture these shots. Again, really appreciate you guys watching this channel. If you're watching this for the first time, my name is Louis Disney Nuts. So make sure you subscribe and comment, and I'll see you on the next one, guys. See ya. Bye.